to. Oh,
Good morning, sir.
oh my gosh! I love to open my eyes and see my good friend Dewey Freeman on the screen. How are you, buddy?
I am doing exceptionally well. How are you?
I am good. I'm Mark Sylvester. The two of us are the Elder Council. This week, we're going to talk about accountability and responsibility, all the abilities. All the abilities.
Sounds like a deal.
When I say, it was funny, I had a meeting with a client this week, and it became very clear that what they were doing was outsourcing their accountability to me. And I was like, hold it, you're the two bosses here. How come I'm gonna, and I'll take it, I'm responsible, I'll take it, but I want, and next week I'm actually going to lay it out. I said, you guys realize that's what you did, just so we're crystal clear. And I thought about what is, I think of it as taking ownership. It's like yeah, that I own that thing, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. When I say that, what crosses your mind?
Taking ownership to me, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, has to do, it's actually more of a somatic feeling where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm it. I'm the one. I'm the decision maker. I'm the one responsible. I'm the one that has to take action or decide not to take action. And I have to do that in a way that in my world is relational.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it feels like it's sort of a big deal. Feels like it's a really big deal.
So is accountability, here's the question, right? Do you freely take it, or what happens if it's thrust upon you?
Can I bring in the word also responsibility?
Guess what? You're a co-host on this show. You get to do whatever you want. You can take a left turn anytime you wish.
Well, here's how I see responsibility. Responsibility has to do with the ability to respond.
Okay.
That's what the word means.
Yep.
And there are actually times where we don't have the ability to respond to something. Not that we're not willing to do it, that's the accountability part, as I see it. But the responsibility, sometimes we just don't have the ability. And an example, one of my horses is lame, and the farrier is coming in about 45 minutes to an hour. My responsibility is to get the farrier here. And maybe I would put that under, like, yeah, I'm accountable for setting this up. I have a working knowledge and ability to put shoes on and trim horses' feet, but I don't have the level of expertise that my farrier has. So it's like I don't have the ability to respond on certain levels, which then to me flips over to accountability. It's like, okay, I don't know how to do that. Or if I do, there's somebody else that can do that better than I can do that. So I'm accountable for setting that up. I'm accountable to my horse. I'm accountable to that relationship to take care of it, even though there's certain things I cannot physically do myself. I don't know. I'm just playing with that a little bit.
However, that kind of, if you don't have the ability to respond, that doesn't mean you're irresponsible.
That is correct. I do have the ability to have a relationship with my farrier and the ability to schedule the time.
You know what this comes back to? This comes back to an earlier theme that feels is underlying a lot of the conversations we have, is you have the conscious ability, right? You have conscious competence,
Yes.
right? And you actually have unconscious competence in your understanding about it's up to you to do whatever those horses need in life, full
That
stop.
is correct. Exactly.
Right. And you've been taking care of horses, you know, decades.
Yes.
And so you have you have such a good relationship. You know what they need. And if you don't know, they know how to tell you, and they know you know how to receive that. And right.
Totally.
Right. Which is kind of it's interesting because this leads into relationships and having I would say, accountability for this. The word smooth sailing comes to mind, but when I'm in relationship with Kimberly, I have, when you're with someone for a long time, you know how to read them. They know how to read you, and you can tell when they are, like, when to shut up, or you can tell when to listen. You can tell, I mean, you just know, right? You just know.
Right.
And you also know, because you know that even though you have something to say, it's time to shut up. And as elders, we know that. And we're wise enough to know, hey, my shit doesn't matter right now. My shit can wait. Right. So in that sense, and that what I just explained, is it my responsibility to be paying attention, listening, being active, which we've talked about a lot, to know she needs space right now, or whoever I'm with. It doesn't, I don't want to pick on her, but it's whoa, they need some space. And so so with these abilities get all, munged up, I think. So our job as elders is to kind of unmunge it.
So I'm in agreement with all that you're saying. As you were talking, what I'm wondering about, and I'm actually asking you because you're a very high level business person. You know how to put businesses together. And in a business, from a business perspective, is there a difference in your mind between accountability and responsibility? Because I sort of get that on a relational perspective. I mean, I too, my Kimberly, I watch, I know her, I know her moods. I know when it's like, yeah, she really needs some attention right now. Oh, she's in the middle of something. She needs to just be supported in going for that, those kind of things. But from a business perspective, what is...
I think I know the answer.
Yeah. Would you speak to that? Because this is an expertise that you have.
So I want to introduce stakes.
Okay.
I think when accountability is the question, there are stakes involved in the accountability. Like I'm accountable to deliver financial performance to my shareholders. I'm accountable for that. If something breaks and I'm not able to deliver something I'm responsible for, the accountability is with me, and there are stakes attached to me not doing that. Okay. However, if I'm responsible for something if I don't do it, well, I didn't do it. So I'm thinking like I ran software companies, and I'm accountable, or my director of software engineering is accountable to me to make sure that product is, if he says, hey, we're going to hit beta on this date, then we're going to hit beta on that date. He's accountable for that. Now he's got 40 people underneath him who have to do their jobs. They have to be responsible to do the thing that they need to do, because he can't have the confidence to be accountable to me unless he knows the people that report to him are responsible. Man, that was convoluted, but I think that's the answer.
No, that's a big deal. So accountability in some ways has to do with keeping track of. Is that accurate?
Well, let's go to the semantic, Mr. Semantic. Semantic accountability is I have the ability to account. An account is keeping track.
Got it. And the responsibility is the ability to do something.
Yeah.
And perform.
I love tearing apart words, by the way.
Yes.
It helps.
Do you have a... So here was an interesting thing that happened to me in the last couple of days. And some of it's based off of the work that you and I have done, and that you and Kimberly and I have done. I was asked to do a podcast, an upcoming podcast, which will be in a couple of weeks from now. Let me actually read you exactly what I wrote. Podcast. I said, so I have a couple of questions. One is, what would you like to get out of this talk? Meaning me speaking. What are you hoping to get across to your listeners? So that's
intention.
Yeah. Two is, how will you know that they're getting what you want them to get?
I love it. You OMV'd your podcast host.
That's exactly what I did. Well, I'll tell you why I did this in a minute. And then the third is, what of value do you want me to bring to this? As in, is there anything that you want me to especially bring to this because of the time that you've known me? What can I bring that other people haven't? And I'll read it exactly. What of value do you want me to bring to this? As in, is there anything that you want me to especially bring to talk about from what you know of me? And I said, these will help me think about what I'm bringing of value. And from my perspective, his response was great. Wow, a lot to ponder. I love these ideas. What you're asking me, I want to get back to you with the most thoughtful answers I can. I'll respond in a couple of days.
Isn't it interesting that the three most important, that three very important questions: what do you want as an outcome? How will you know it when you see it? What kind of measure do you have? And what value is it to you for that outcome to come true?
Right.
Three powerful questions, and asked in a very simple situation. I'm going to be a guest. What outcome would you like? He literally has never been asked that before.
Well, I can tell by his response. And what it did for me was hold him accountable.
Yeah.
Because I walk in holding accountability for myself and responsibility. And what it did for me was go, I'm in, I'm playing all in here. And I want to step in to this on a level playing field with you. And, I don't want to go in going, oh my God, what's he going to ask me? so like what I think that I did was up the ante,
100%.
and in I think a very
And
responsible way.
what is upping the ante? Another word for that is raising the stakes.
Raising the stakes. So I'm asking him to be accountable as well as, and I will hold myself accountable. I will. I mean, that's what I do in my life.
Right.
And, you know, what my desire is to have a high quality podcast come out of this for both him and for me. Smoke's coming out of your ears.
No, I
can see this.
But here's what's interesting. There's a lot interesting, but we just did a show about integrating new information and how do we up level our skills. And here's a perfect example of you taking something that you learned recently through working with us about those three very important questions in life, and applied them in a situation that was a perfect application of that, because we want to be very intentional. And then hearing you say that is like you got one in a row, which is fantastic, right? So you kind of exercise that muscle at doing that. So you're there, you've taken responsibility, right? Because you're an accountable person, right? These and that in itself is the root word of an ability.
That was pretty good.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show.
That might be our show. That was really good. So yeah, and it's like, and part of what you're saying is, you know, how do you play all in? How do you, you know, and are you willing to do that? Because I had no idea how this person would respond. No idea.
You almost never will, because most people are not used to answering that question. And even an example for me, I get introduced to a potential client this week, and you know, after the kind of getting to know you questions, and you know, doing that over Zoom, right, because he doesn't live here, say, hey, what, you know, what's your objective? What do you want to get out of this thing? How someone told you I was the guy to talk to, and you mentally agreed, what do you want from working with me? What kind of outcome are you looking for? Right. And he goes, well, you know, it was funny. He says, you know, I knew you were going to ask me that. And I said, because guys like you ask those kinds of questions. And I said, and then most people don't know that your guy punted. He says, I need to think about that. He could have thought about it and then done your email, but he didn't. He punted a bit. And I could tell. And I said, so here's my favorite retort. I know you don't know the answer. But if you did, what do you think it might be?
Right.
Which gives him permission to be wrong.
And it gives permission for him to experiment.
Yeah, that's play. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And what happens is in that you've created here. Let's just bring all our past shows together. It creates an opening for you to start building a relationship with someone you don't know in a very positive and intentional way, and just say, because once now we're talking, well, I'm not really sure. I don't. What about this? And all you're doing is just keeping the conversation alive. Your responsibility, right, is just to keep. There's an answer in there. Just keep going. Right. No, that's not it. No, that's what's that? Yeah, that's it. What was that? Tell me more about that. More words on that. And that's why I love being a curious human.
So is part of what you're saying that accountability has to do with being curious? Accountability has to do with
You know, I'm thinking some of the suits that I've worked with who were not curious at all,
exactly.
but they were gonna hold me accountable. Dude, that's your shit right there. And I'm holding you accountable because someone else is holding me accountable. So I am holding you accountable. And I know you're responsible and I know you're dependable. Dependability is in there. So another one of the abilities, right? There's a bunch of these abilities. If we look at that root word and the word that part in front of it, like sustainability, right? There's flexibility. A lot of these that are, I think, in our toolkit that we need to be able to have at our availability. There's a bunch of them.
So maybe one of the questions we can ask, and I'm totally following you here, can ask the men who are listening to this is, what are your abilities? And how do you nurture those abilities? How do you assess those abilities? And are you willing to be curious about your own abilities and your own inabilities to really take a relatively objective perspective and look at them? It's like, oh, well, yeah, I have the ability to do this, but I don't have the ability to do that. And then work with living with that.
I love this. I think our guys could probably, maybe they're not mechanics, but they've seen one of those big red carts that the guy pushes up to your cart. Now it's a computer, but back in the day, it used to be a big red cart, and he would have all of those drawers, and those are your chest of ability, right?
Yes.
Right. Those are all of your abilities. So it's almost like ability mapping, right? I want to map my ability, right? So I want to have a very sober conversation with myself. And what might be helpful, actually, this might be an exercise we do in Jefferson, is to say, what are all the abilities? Like, let's inventory them, do that as a brainstorm to get people to, like, what are all the abilities? And then have that very hard conversation with yourself. Excuse me, be realistic on a scale of 1 to 10. Where am I on those things? And then the other part is to, I think, say, not all abilities are equal, let's say, or as important, right? What are the most important ones and why? And then it would be, I think, continue down this track. We could do course development in real time. What are the things to do to sharpen an ability? For instance, people know I'm a chef, and I'm forever sharpening my blades, right? And so having a really good steel, and sometimes I've got to go to the stone, and sometimes I got to go take it to a pro to have a new edge put on it. Okay, there's a great analogy. Like, what is the steel you need to improve your responsibility? Right. What is the stone you need? Or do I need to go get a pro? I kind of like this. This could be an interesting workshop thing.
Yeah, I like that. And it's like, and when you find yourself not having a certain ability, what can you do? And
exactly.
Like I might have mentioned this before. In 2010, I busted my pelvis. It left me with some nerve damage in my feet where I cannot feel my toes. My toes are numb. No pain. Every once in a while, I get up and walk. The first couple steps, it looks like I've had too much to drink. I can sort of literally find my feet. So I'm in the dojo. This is maybe 3-4 years ago. And there's just one move and a foot, a movement. And I said to the sensei, I don't know if I can do that. I was trying to do it. I don't know if I can do it because I can't feel my feet. And his response was, well, what part of your foot can you feel? Can you feel the outside? Can you feel your heel? And so, well, yeah, I can feel the outside.
Great.
The outside edge at a certain point. He said, well, do what you can do with that. Work with that. And, and it's like, sometimes what I see people do is when they don't have the ability to do something, which I did not have the ability to do what was being asked right then in the dojo, I had another ability. Go ahead.
Adaptability.
Adaptability. Same way with playing basketball. I was a very good basketball player. I mean, not pro level, but I was a really solid basketball player. And I'm tall. I was 6'3". I'm not anymore. But maybe 1 out of 25 attempts, I could dunk a ball. And it was just like, no matter what I did, that was the best I could do. But I also then had to figure out, okay, well, what can I do?
So you did an inventory of your skills. You did an ability map.
Yeah. And
interesting. I bet your coach had already done an ability map for you and knew exactly what you couldn't do and how they couldn't use you in a given situation.
That probably is accurate. I hadn't even thought about that.
Because he's accountable to winning the game, not you.
Well, he's accountable to helping me reach the top of what I could do.
Right.
And so, yeah.
We are way down at the bottom of this rabbit hole, aren't we?
We
are.
I love
fun. This though, right? Because the visualization of all of these abilities, it's almost like there's that one where the guy has the coat, he opens it up and it's got every kind of knife he's ever going to need to be in his nefarious self. And it's kind of like, there's whatever it is that you need to get through life, whatever that is, having a very realistic understanding of what you can and can't do. I think a lot of times we don't have that. We have an inflated sense of our ability, right? And or we're living in a the rose tinted glasses world. Oh yeah, I can solve that. Yeah, maybe maybe you can't. Maybe you don't have what you need.
Yeah, so maybe a question that we can ask the men is, what are you able to do? What do you struggle with? What do you want to do about either of those situations? And how much time and energy are you willing to put into, one, assessing yourself, and two, working with your ability and inability, whether it's responsibility, accountability, flexibility,
intractability. Oh, I'm going to be Googling words that end in ability as soon as we finish our call. How many do you think they are?
Wow.
Words that end in ability. Now, right now, people, do not stop the tape and Google it, because that's not fair.
I'm going to guess well over 300.
Oh, this is going to be fun. This is a day-long exercise.
But here's the piece, wrapping this back around. we have both, I think, a responsibility and accountability to ourselves and to others.
Yeah.
To know what we can do and what we can't do. And to know what things in there, if we can't do something, do we have the ability to improve on that?
So therein lies an interesting way that I approach life. When a situation comes up that's going to require I have a certain ability, and I have enough, but I don't have as much as I'm going to need, I look at this from a very Marshall point of view, which is this is an opportunity to train.
Right on.
So then I can say, oh, through the experience of doing this thing, I'm going to get a rep in. I know I'm going to learn something. I am intentionally taking on the task so that I have an opportunity to work on this skill and get better at it. Now, it would be irresponsible if the stakes were high, if I failed, for me to say, I'm sorry, I couldn't, I'm not the right guy for that yet. I'm a white belt. I'm a yellow belt, right? I'm a green belt at that. You really need a black belt to help you with that. However, if you're good with a green belt, I may get a stripe by working on this thing. And I think that's a very intentional way, but that implies that I have a very realistic view of my ability to in any situation, and I don't have a either overinflated or an underappreciation of my ability to do something, which I think I think happens a lot. We see it a lot with people who have imposter syndrome, because we work with speakers, and you know, like, you're going to put yourself on the stage and say, you know, you won't ever say this, but the virtue that you're in front of the people and they're not, you are now our expert for the amount of time that you're up there. And people, everybody up and down have that sense of imposter syndrome. I just wrote a whole thing about this, and you need to know, most times that's just a story you're telling yourself, right? You have the ability. So again, if you have a current inventory of all of those skills and your ability to, hey, I have resilience, right? I know I can bounce back on things. Hey, I know I can shut up when I need to. I know I can deliver when I have to. I know even when I know I'm dependable. I know my partner can depend that I'm going to be there, even if we both don't know what the fuck. And that has happened. We've had some elderly deaths in the family, and we're like, what the fuck now?
Right. So, yeah, so maybe we can leave this today with the men really assessing their ability, what they're willing to do, and are they willing to step in to increase their competency?
I'm going to make a bold statement that anyone who is listening to this, who is part of the nation, has already opted in to the game of life.
Right on.
Right.
Yes.
They've opted in. They've said, I want to be better. I'm going to do whatever it takes to be better, a better man, a better person, a better husband, a better dad, a better human, better. I'm going to be better. And so that's part of our responsibility as the elders, right? Is to kind of put these big questions out there to think about, cogitate on a bit, and just, okay, what are my abilities?
Yeah. To dive deep into looking at that for yourself.
Yeah. My friend, I love you. I love our conversations.
Thank you. I love you too. And I really hope this leads to some men really looking at their lives from this perspective.
How can they not?
Thank you.